Back in 2004, the world at large hadn't heard of a four-door coupe. Now, just 10 years later, there's hardly anyone in the world at large that hasn't seen one, given the amount of things on our roads. The original was the Mercedes-Benz CLS, and now that it's done starting its own class of car, it seems that it's taken to spawning some offspring. This is the CLA, a smaller four-door coupe that in truth isn't so much following in its father's footsteps by creating another new class, because it's too busy being its own interpretation of an existing one. It goes up against Audi's A3 sedan and the BMW 2 Series, both of which sport different designs, but still have the intention of going after a market that's keen on a smaller premium car, but aren't particularly wanting a hatch. And between those three, the CLA takes the styling cake. When I first saw this car, I didn't really like it because I was looking at it from its individual angles, where I thought it looked a bit soft and a bit droopy. But then when I had one parked in front of me where I could take it all in, I realized that it is one seriously good-looking machine. Made even more so by the optional Edition 1 package fitted to our test car, which includes the blacked-out windows, the black wheels and some AMG bits as well. It's a low, aggressive, sculpted thing that makes an impression the moment you see it. The front is all A-Class, but the back is unique, with the curves of the rear lights accented by some very pretty LED elements. It's so good to look at while it's standing still that it has that magical effect that some cars have. It's the kind of car that draws you in, that makes you want to drive it. You'll find any excuse to get behind the wheel, even if it means sitting in traffic for 2 hours, because even though you won't be going anywhere fast, you'll be looking good doing it. This is one of those cars that makes you look over your shoulder once you've walked away after you've parked it. Included in the price for the Edition 1 package are some interior extras as well, the most glaringly obvious of which is the yellow striped microfiber and leather seats, which I'm not sure I like. I mean, I like them, I just don't think they suit this particular car. Even the color-coded stitching doesn't seem to tie everything together, because the yellow bits tell you it's a performance machine, but the rest of the well-spec'd setup tells you it's more for the professional, and I'm not sure that the two elements sit well together. For me, in order for things to be convincing, it needs to be either one or the other, and as it is, it's not really either. But it is comfortable, jammed full of typical Merc design ideas, and it's also very easy to use. In fact, it has to be one of the most intuitive interiors around. When we drove the Audi A3 sedan earlier in the year, we asked whether there was any real reason to choose an A4 instead, other than a tiny bit of extra space. That question isn't applicable with this car, because that sloping roofline that adds so much to the look also deletes the headroom for rear passengers, even short ones like me, which probably won't concern you too much unless you plan to run a lift scheme with 3 other people. Boot space is still good. You see the CLA, it looks the part. You get into the interior with its mixed messages and then you're not so sure. And then there is another part that tells you this car isn't designed for performance, and it's the engine. Not because it's a diesel, there are lots of Le Mans winners to disprove that theory, but because by comparison to everything else in this car, it's just not that well sorted. By which I mean it's unrefined, especially when it's cold. There's never any doubt about what's powering this particular CLA, because that unmistakable diesel clatter is always there, and it is a little at odds with the rest of the package. The 125 kilowatts and 350 newton meters makes time behind the CLA wheel effortless, thanks in part to the 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox. Mercedes-Benz claimed fuel consumption is in the low 4 litres per 100 k's range, which we really can't comment on. We've quite literally taken advantage of a few hours of sunshine to film this car because it's been raining solidly for the last 3 weeks. And in Joburg, that means slower than normal traffic because of the rise in the levels of idiocy and the amount of broken traffic lights and potholes. So, of course, all of that means that your fuel consumption testing goes out the window, along with any chance to really test the AMG tuned suspension. But what I can tell you is that in the atrocious conditions we've had, this car still feels sure-footed and solid, without the spine-dissolving ride you might expect from a sportier than normal setup. The stability is helped by the front-wheel drive layout, plus a whole bunch of ESP-related safety systems that act directly on the steering. The incongruous collection of slick styling, a clattery diesel, and an interior that's neither completely sporty nor utterly luxurious surprisingly does nothing to diminish the enjoyment of the drive in the CLA. but I do think that in part that's down to the fact that the styling is so strong. The rest of it is well kitted and comfortable, and if you had to ask my choice, well, even though the CLA, the A3 sedan and the 2 Series BMW will be going against each other for sales, they all offer something unique, so it's difficult to pick a clear winner. But it will be a very interesting battle to watch. The turbo diesel motor has good power on demand, helped by the 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox, but it's not the most refined motor on offer. The CLA's styling is reason enough to want to get behind the wheel. We may not appreciate the dual nature of the interior, but it offers a comfortable drive with typical Mercedes-Benz quality.